Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to BB Dev Days. We are glad to have you join us. We're going to take a moment, let people come on in. I am excited to introduce you to Andrew Smith from Glacier National Park Conservancy to talk today about integrating RENXT with automated email marketing. So a couple of quick items. Please go ahead and use the chat or the Q&A to ask any questions. I will be here helping Andrew with some Q&A and feeding it to him as we go. This is for you to learn from. We're really excited to have Andrew here to share. So introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know if it's your first BB Dev Days. And I'm going to go ahead and, Andrew, let you take it away.
All right, thank you. My name is Andrew. I'm going to be presenting about integrating RENXT with automated email marketing today. So a little outline of what we'll be covering. First, I'm going to go over some background for myself, my organization, and the problem we were trying to solve here. Then we'll look at the user experience and the front end. And then finally, we'll dive into the code a little bit. And feel free to ask questions at any point. So I was a ranger naturalist for 7 years in the National Park Service, mostly here in Glacier National Park, where I live today. Then about 2 years ago, I moved to the Glacier National Park Conservancy to become the communications lead. And in addition to working at GNPC, I'm also a master's student in bioinformatics at Johns Hopkins University. If you're not familiar with bioinformatics, it's the computational branch of molecular biology. So it includes tasks like genome assembly and protein structure prediction. We take the raw results from molecular biology experiments. There's often hundreds of millions or even billions of data points, and write computer programs to extract meaning from these data sets and interpret them. So this is why I have a little background in coding, and Python especially is used in bioinformatics, but we'll also see some JavaScript today. And bioinformatics, because of these giant data sets, is very CPU bound, our problems normally. So data structures and algorithms are important. So yeah, I'm in a non-technical position, but I have a little bit of a technical background. So hopefully be able to talk to both aspects of that today. The Glacier National Park Conservancy is the official philanthropic and retail partner of Glacier National Park. We fund over $3 million a year in projects in Glacier to fill gaps in the federal budget. So to give you a little bit of context of what that means, I wanted to share just briefly about a couple projects we funded this year, including supporting the reintroduction of bison into the Glacier National Park ecosystem, the construction of wheelchair accessible trails in the park, as well as the development of the park's climate action strategy. So if you know anything about Glacier National Park, it's probably that the glaciers are melting. So climate change is a big part of our story here. We raise money both through development, which is a traditional philanthropy branch, but we also do retail. We operate 4 brick and mortar stores as well as an e-commerce store. So we have a variety of audiences and topics that we need to communicate with, and we need to keep track of how people came to us, what ways they're interested in us, and what they like to hear about. We use Drip for our email management software. If you're not familiar with it, it's similar to MailChimp or something like that. Drip especially focuses on building tools for automated email series that are triggered by user actions. So an example would be like a abandoned cart series. So a user does an action on our e-commerce store, and that triggers an email workflow from them. But it also allows us to, oh, you're reading Ministry of the Future. Great. I love Kim Stanley Robinson. So it also allows us to integrate data between our retail customers and our donors and try to interconvert them. So for example, if someone buys a fishing guidebook from us, we might email them about opportunities to support fisheries restoration in the park. This means that our donor records in NXT and email profiles in Drip need to be able to communicate with each other. And the problem that our fundraisers really came to me with was they wanted to quickly remove people from automated series once they had completed an action, which is in this case making a gift. And they wanted to be able to do it very quickly for hundreds of people without having to leave NXT. An example that we'll stick with through the presentation today is Giving Tuesday. So for example, on Giving Tuesday, we might have a 3-part email series that goes out to good donor candidates. If we have 150 people respond to that first appeal and make a gift, we don't want to email them 2 more times asking them for a gift that day. That's going to be irritating to them. So our fundraisers wanted to see that gift come into gift management and immediately remove them from the series. But once I started to build this out, we realized that it gave us a way to integrate donor information and email more broadly, and it gave us other opportunities to support fundraising. So starting with this question of like how to stop email series right away when someone's gift shows up in a gift management batch, we came up with a solution that involves a Chrome extension that interacts with NXT on the front end, and then the back end is a Flask app that's written in Python, and it connects that data with our Drip API, which is the email client, and then communicates the success or failure of that operation back to the front end, and that runs in a Docker container. So at this point, I'll share with you guys the links to the GitHub repositories we're going to be talking about. So there's 2. There's one for that front end Chrome extension, and then the Python Flask app on the back end. I can give you all a second to grab that if you want to. And yeah, Judy's got the link in the chat as well. I made short links from our URL too if you don't want to type that whole thing in. So it's glacier.org/FE and glacier.org/BE. Okay, so let's talk about what happens on the front end. Ultimately, our goal here is to get data into Drip about what series people need to be added or removed from. So I'm going to be talking about tags. When I talk about tags, I'm actually talking about Drip tags, which are the hooks we use to add or remove people from different automated series. So the emails that you get are controlled by the tags on your profile, but don't focus on tags too much. Any sort of endpoint that we have on your email client that you can use to add or remove people from marketing, you could generalize that solution to them. So our goal is to change tags in Drip ultimately. And we have a Chrome extension, and I'm going to show you these different aspects. It has a pop-out menu by the Omnibar that allows us to change the settings, and then it injects a button into the gift management batches so that you can tag people who have made recent gifts or untag them in Drip. So let's look at what that looks like for our fundraiser. So they've got this little GNPC logo. They open this pop-up menu, and they've got 3 options here. They can set a confirmation email address that will send them a receipt of whatever changes they make in email management. So it's really nice if to have that written confirmation. We can check later what really happened. If someone got tagged, didn't get tagged, what they got added to, removed from. You can set the tag to change. So today I have it Giving Tuesday, and then you want to select if you want to add them to this automated series or remove them. And today, so we have got people in a gift batch who have just made a gift, and we're ready to remove them from Giving Tuesday so we don't keep asking them for money. And then we save that. And once it's saved, those settings just stay the same until you update them again. So you don't need to keep coming back in here and setting the tag if you're handling a bunch of batches. There are 2 other tabs here. The settings tab is really just relevant for me. This allows me to set the address of the backend server, so I can have both a development and a production version going, and folks can, our fundraisers won't need to switch that, but I can put it into test mode to debug or test out new features. And then there's this help tab that has some explanations of what I'm about to show you. So you don't need to try to read that. So here we have a standard batch, let's say. Here are some fake constituents I put in here. We have 3 that will test different cases that we want to be able to handle. We have Sam, Michael, and Roger. Sam, everything's good with Sam. We have contact information. We have consent. We're good to mark it to Sam. Michael, we have an email address for, but we don't have consent. So we don't want to subscribe Michael to any additional email series. We actually want to remove emails only from Michael. Roger, we are missing contact information. So we've got 3 different cases. And then you also notice that there's these extra elements now in this batch page, which is what the extension adds. We have this counter of how many GIFs were detected on the page and a tag constituents button. As soon as you hit that tag constituents button, that's when the exciting stuff happens. I'll show you that in a minute. But first I want to talk about why we need this 3 GIFs found with the green check mark. This is just sort of a quirk of the way these angular grids work that Blackbaud has on this page. So they only load 100 GIFs at a time. And so if we have a batch with over 100 GIFs, we'll need to scroll down and force them all to load for the extension to see what all is happening in there. So I'll show you how that works. This is a real batch of ours, so I blurred it out because I didn't want to make 230 fake GIFs to show how that works. But you'll see as this page is loaded, only 100 GIFs have been found. There are 230 in this batch. So once we start scrolling down, then the next 100 load. You can see that up here. And then keep scrolling. We get the 230 in the check mark. So that just allows you to double check that everything's loaded into the page before you hit go. Okay, so let's see what happens when we are ready for action. So we've already set in our pop-up that we want to remove these people from the Giving Tuesday series. All 3 GIFs have been found. We can see we've got the green check mark. So we are ready to hit tag constituents. So it loads. This will take just a second. And then we get our outcome. Oh, I did that twice. But, as you probably saw there for a second, once we get a response from the back end, it'll update these names with an icon showing what the outcome was. So for Sam, we were able to find his email address and we had consent for him. We get the green check. Michael, we have his email address, but we do not have consent. So we get this warning. Because this was an unsubscribe operation, Michael is still removed, but it would not allow us to add him to a new series. And then Roger, we're missing contact information. So we get that visual feedback there. So what's actually happening when we hit that tag constituents button? When this angular grid is created that shows the gift batches, it shows some information, but it actually loads even more. So the constituent IDs are hidden in there. They're not visible, but they're loaded. And that's our primary key for looking up our constituents. So we can use the API to retrieve email address and consent status and then pass that along to Drip. And then here's what that confirmation email looks like if you signed up for it. So this one, I switched it actually to an add tag, but we can see you get a list of who was affected by each operation. And then finally, I wanted to show you how our fundraisers get this. It's not in the Chrome extension store. So I have this folder that's synced to the GitHub repository on a shared drive, and they just use the load unpacked option in Chrome extensions to load it. And that keeps things simple for us. So that is the front end. And then we can see what's happening behind the scenes here. So just to keep things simpler from a security standpoint, the backend is not connected to the wider internet. We do everything just over LAN on our local network. So there's an open port on the back end server, but it's firewalled off. We connect to it over LAN. I live in the park, and our in town. So I often work from home, and I'll use Tailscale, which is just a WireGuard VPN. If you're not familiar, to VPN in, and then I can access the office LAN that way. It's a simple Python Flask app running in a Docker container, and it's just on a little Raspberry Pi in a closet. So it's a really simple setup. Didn't try to use the cloud or anything like that, but you easily could. If you want to set this up in Vercel or Google Cloud or something like that, no reason you couldn't. I used an object-oriented approach for the Flask server, which I'll show you in a second. And we use multi-threading with rate limiters to handle the API interactions. The Drip and Blackbaud APIs have different throttles, so we need to be able to customize how many threads we have so we don't get the 429 responses. So this is kind of the main function I'll take you through. I'm going to zoom into each step so you don't need to worry about trying to read this whole thing like this. This is what happens when the backend receives. So the Chrome extension is going to pull that data out of the page, post it to the backend. Then we have this custom class called a batch post, which just parses that the body of the post into a bunch of attributes of a class object so that they're easy to access. And we send that to our Blackbaud function, which uses another custom class called API search. So this is really pretty simple. We just create a thread for each person that we need to look up. We use that account rate limit throttle. So for me, it's 10, but if you have a different type of account, it might be higher, to limit the number of threads going at once. And in each thread, we take that constituent ID, look up the email, look up the consent status, and then add that back into the batch object. The only kind of complication here is we are using multiple threads that are editing the same object. So we just use a lock on the threading to make sure only one object is writing, one thread is writing to the object at the same time and avoid race conditions. Once we have everyone's email address and consent, if we don't have any emails, we're done. We can just return a response to the extension and it'll let the user know that there weren't any email addresses found. But if we do find things, then we tag them in Drip. And I'm not going to show the Drip function because it's very particular to our setup. And the point of this session isn't really to talk about Drip's API, but it's in that repository if you guys use Drip, or probably a lot of you use other types of email managers. So I'm going to scroll down here. We take this batch, and because I have this test only tag, if I do that, it doesn't bother sending me an email because I don't need 100 emails for confirmation when I'm testing it. But it generates that email message, so it converts the results into a string. And we saw that email. I had the screenshot of Gmail earlier, and it sends it. If there's some kind of issue, it automatically CCs me on the email. And then it generates the response in JSON form. So first we do it in string form, then JSON form. We return that to the extension. And that's what allows it to populate the names with the different emojis so that we can see exactly what happened with each person that was involved. And then our error handling. So if we encounter an error, it retrieves the admin's email from the environment, which is me, and then sends me an email explaining what went wrong. We also get an error message back to the user. So they will know that those people are not tagged and they're not good to go. But this doesn't happen very often. Okay, so that's the broad parameters of the solution. So how's it working? It's been working really well for us. This saves our fundraisers a lot of time of looking people up and verifying that they've been removed from marketing, especially around really busy days when their time is most valuable. So that's our Giving Tuesdays, our year-end campaigns. we want people to fundraisers and database managers to be focused on fundraising and not email suppression. So team's been happy with it. And then there are a couple next steps I'd like to take with this. We talked mostly about suppression, but there are also opportunities to subscribe people to different series as they're interested in. Something I think would be really helpful for us is working with folks who are interested in planned giving. So if the fundraiser's on the phone with someone and they seem interested in planned giving, we want to get that information to them ASAP. So that could be a good way to add them to that series. There's also possibilities of things like thank you series, new donor orientation, but all these things aren't as time sensitive. So we're not worried about getting them right out of the batch screen. We need to upgrade this from manifest version 2. So for Chrome, there's extension manifest versions 2, which is what this uses, is about to be deprecated. So I'm going to have to upgrade it to MV3. Yeah, and then integrating buttons and features beyond that batch page, beyond the gift management tab. So yeah, that's what I've got. Happy to take any questions now, or if you think you are going to have questions later once you've had a little time to digest this, welcome to add me on LinkedIn and ask your questions anytime after this as well. Thanks. Okay.
So, Andrew, Victoria was asking if you know if it's possible to use the Razor's Edge NXT email app for this.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with what the API is for the NXT email app. I imagine it works with the tags that are in your NXT profile, so you probably could do something similar. The reason we don't use the NXT email app is because we have our retail customers too. So we have all these different channels that people are coming in through, and we don't manage our retail and e-commerce customers through NXT, but
Okay.
I would imagine so. I couldn't tell you the particulars though.
And Victoria, I'm happy to bring that back to our resource team as well and get an answer for you. Anybody else have any questions today? Thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So I don't know if you've all heard this already. Maybe you have. We have a few more minutes for questions, and then I'm going to launch a survey that will ask you to please take a couple minutes to participate in. Our presenters who get the most survey respondents may be eligible to go to BBCon and present their session there with a complimentary pass. So we will ask you to please go ahead and fill out your surveys for each of your sessions that you attend.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks everyone for coming today.
Any questions before we go ahead and I can launch that survey, but we're here for a few more minutes if you have any questions.
Very well. Well, we don't have to force you to ask any questions. You've got my contact info. If you come up with things later, there's a lot to cover in 20 minutes. So you might need some time to digest.
Absolutely. I hope that everyone is heading off to another session. I'm interested to know what you're going to next, if you want to add that to the chat too.
Oh, looks like Tracy has their hand raised.
Thank you for letting me know. I am not seeing that. Let me see what I can do.
Maybe they figured it out. Oh.
Okay. Andrew, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.